Hey guys, Anthony Beckham here, and today we are going to be talking about the future of the Roseburg, Oregon real estate market, because we've got some problems that everybody's talking about. I mean, rising prices, lack of inventory, inflation, rising mortgage rates. And what does that mean for the real estate market and what's going to happen? Well, that's what we're going to be diving into today. We're going to be looking at some of the real data, debunking some myths, and figuring out if now is a good time for you to buy or not. So let's go ahead and hop right into it. Starting with the discussion of lack of inventory, why are there no homes for sale in Roseburg? Well, looking at the last couple decades of market activity, we can actually see that we've had a very similar number of listings hitting the market before COVID as we had after COVID, with around a 10% difference year over year in the actual amount of listings, which would accurately show the steady market growth that we've had since the housing recession of 2008. The actual amount of listing inventory has actually been fairly stable, with predictable increases in the spring and summer months, the hot selling months, and then of course it's slowing down year over year during the fall and winter months. So the question is, if we are having a similar amount of listings year over year, then why the heck aren't there any homes for sale? Now you know what has changed? The days on market. So looking back at market activity in 2018, we can see 90 days on market was fairly common before you would actually expect to see a home go pending. Now compare that to the averages of spring 2021, and you'd be surprised to see a home stay on the market for even as much as 30 days. What this means is that we have a lot more buyers in the market than we do homes for sale. And while listing inventory has been fairly stable, buyer demand has gone up substantially. So who are these buyers? With us selling 101 homes in 2020, 125 homes in 2021, I can give you a pretty decent idea of who these folks are that are moving here to Roseburg. The fact is that COVID changed a lot about the way that we live. We now have professionals that are able to work from home, and that means that they can choose to live wherever they want without the dreaded commute to the office. So when you start to take into consideration COVID itself, the riots, the supply chain shortages, lack of toilet paper, all the crazy things that we've been through the last couple of years, all of a sudden it starts to make a lot more sense to maybe live in a more rural town like Roseburg, Oregon, than to live in these bigger, more densely populated cities. And so we've always had a good amount of newcomers moving to town, but it's always been more of a retirement community. But now we're also able to have these professionals who can work from home and enjoy the small town living. And while all that craziness was going on, guess what? Interest rates hit their all-time lows. So now if you're spending $1,500 a month in rent, it might make a little bit more sense that people start getting pre-approved and taking advantage of these low interest rates and becoming first-time home buyers. So then we saw these more first-time home buyer type properties with 5, 10 offers on them in them getting super competitive. And then it was also a good time for sellers to take advantage of the equity they had built, take advantage of the low interest rates, and upgrade housing while maybe not changing their payment all that much. And all of these variables have led to a market frenzy of buyers. And with a similar amount of listings, it's created this low inventory that we all have to fight over. So the question is, what has this done to our prices? And if we look over the last few years, there has been double-digit appreciation year over year. So for the first time, I'm having buyers that are, say, in the 500,000 plus range that are getting beat out, or there's multiple offers on these properties. Maybe it takes a couple of tries. And with 15% increase in values just last year, it doesn't seem to be slowing down. We can see in 2018, we had a median sales price of $210,000, 2019, $228,000, 2020, $249,000, and then the increase from 2020 to 2021 is up to $294,500 median sales price. And as you can see, the units sold has actually gone up over the last 4 years, but has remained in that same relative range. So what does this mean, and where do I see it going? Well, I think it could go one of two ways. And first, we have to acknowledge the elephant in the room: inflation. We now see nationally that US consumer prices have risen 7.5%, rents increased 14%, gas has gone up 58.7%, and even used car prices are up 40%. And we're being told that up to 80% of all US currency was printed in the last 22 months. And of course, that is driving up prices of everything around us. So we have several types of inflation at work here. The supply and demand, like we've been talking about, but also the supply chain shortages, like we saw with toilet paper and everything else, and the wage price spiral, which is where wages go up, so in turn, businesses have to raise the cost of their goods and services. When I was in high school, I remember being excited that minimum wage was about to go up 10 cents and that I was gonna be getting a raise. But the next day, I went into McDonald's and the dollar menu was no longer the dollar menu, it was the $1.19 menu. And I had done some figuring and saw that I had actually lost some money on that deal. And that, my friends, is the wage price spiral. So back on the subject of real estate, in 1963, the US median sales price of a home was just over $17,000. Today, it's just over $408,000. So what's the best hedge against inflation? That would be real estate. And that's why we see all the big corporations and hedge funds buying up all this investment property all across the US, because it is the best place to hedge against inflation, especially taking into consideration those dollars in the bank are losing value day by day. On the other hand, we have the issue of these rising interest rates, which I can see if they get any higher, it start to affect the affordability and in turn start to affect values. If nothing else, at least slowing down this crazy increase that we have seen over the last couple of years. So a quick illustration, I have an investment property. I was quoted 4% for this cash out refinance. By the time we were actually done with it, because construction took a little bit longer than expected with the supply chain shortages and everything, they quoted me 5%. And even though that doesn't seem like a lot, from 4 to 5%, that changed my monthly mortgage payment by almost $200. A $300,000 loan at 4% equals a $1,432 monthly payment, whereas a $300,000 loan at 5% equals a $1,610 monthly payment. That's a difference of $178 for the same price home, just because the interest rates went up a measly 1%. And so for a general rule of thumb, for every 1% that mortgage rates increase, it decreases your purchase power about 10%. So looking at that, we can all agree that if rates continue to go up, that's certainly going to affect affordability of housing and in turn the prices. Of course, none of us know what's going to happen tomorrow. I had clients that were selling off all their properties in 2017, 2018, preparing for the market crash. That never happened, and they ended up missing out on one of the largest bull runs that we've seen in the real estate market in recorded history. Another thing is that sometimes we just have to accept that things change and that this may be the new normal. I used to be able to go out and sell a $100,000 house to a first-time home buyer. Those just don't exist anymore. And if we're like a grandpa who bought his first house in 1963 for $17,000, and he's still waiting for the market crash so that he can buy another $17,000 house, those times might be long gone and we most likely won't ever see them again. And so we need to not be thinking about what prices used to be 5-10 years ago, and instead be thinking about the now and the future. I think that the most likely scenario is that we're going to continue to see real estate prices rise with the cost of everything else, unfortunately, with all this crazy inflation that we're seeing. Now, that's assuming that we don't have some sort of black swan event that creates a market crash or something like that. But I would say in these uncertain times, it makes sense to be cautious. So don't buy a house anticipating that it's going to double in value over the next couple of years like we saw these last handful of years, because you just never know what's going to happen. Now, I'm still purchasing properties, but I'm doing so very cautiously and only buying things that I know that I can hold on to for the long haul, because I think we can all agree that over a long enough time horizon, Roseburg, Oregon real estate is just going to keep going up. So thank you guys so much for watching. Comment below your guys' thoughts on today's video, any questions you have or any of your own predictions. And if you haven't already, of course, don't forget to like this video. And YouTube has a great video recommendation for you over here that I know that you're gonna love. And while you're over there, subscribe to the channel to learn what it's all about living here in Roseburg, Oregon. And we'll see you on the next one. See ya.